Come along, children. Now we're going to have a little music.
This ain't funny, so don't you dare laugh.
Oh, look at this.
Jeez, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Wow, what a way to start the show.
What a way to start the show without Andres. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of First Cut Live. As you can see, Andres is not here manning the ship, so he left me and RB3 to cause absolute chaos on this Monday evening. Very, very happy to be here. I am Sabrina Ramirez, and of course, I am joined, like I mentioned, by my friend RB3.
Hey,
what's up? How you doing?
Sorry, no funny rhymes. I'm so sorry. This was so loud too this entire time. I don't know what's going on. I'm so sorry. Yeah, you're yelling over it. Happy. I'm so sorry. Happy Monday. In all honesty, I'm having really bad allergies today, so I'm not in the fullest of mindsets right now, mind states or whatever, however you want to call it.
That's karma. That's karma for hitting you after those Candyman reviews.
Yeah.
That you were putting on social media.
Yeah.
So
exactly. We have a lot to get into.
We have so much to get into, but I definitely want to know, how was your week? How has everything been?
Things have been good. I mean, the weekend I saw Candyman, and then I also went to a friend's birthday party like right afterwards kind of thing, which was also really fun. Shout out to my man DeAndre. Today's his actual like real birthday, so shout out to him. And then it was good seeing people from high school. And then Sunday was a very relaxing day at home with moms, so it was very cool. But Candyman, it was a good movie, so I like it. You know what I mean? It didn't really kill the vibe. It was really Sunday morning when I saw the floods of people I love and respect a lot of times, you know what I mean, telling me like, yo, Rob, you bugging on this one, you bugging on this one, you bugging on this one, you bugging on this one. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. And it's always the same people. I don't know. But that's just my, we'll talk about that. But overall, I had a good week. And I had a fun time when I saw Candyman as well. So it was a good time.
Yeah, no, I had a really good time. I saw Candyman on Thursday at the Alamo Draft House. So it was the second time that I've ever been there, and it's always just a lot of fun.
Still haven't been.
I know they have those like memberships and things like that. You can get food, all these different things. It's really, really nice, and it's kind of perfect for a film like Candyman because I've been really looking forward to seeing like a really good horror movie in theaters, and we're gonna get into our review, but my weekend, it was a lot of fun. I went out on Saturday. Dorian convinced me to go out, so I went out with Dorian and Mikey. I had that. I've been apartment hunting, so we put in our application for a new apartment, and then basically I had a job interview today. So hopefully, fingers crossed that went well. Woo. Yeah. Hey. I am feeling really good about it. I already have stuff for like the next steps and different things like that. So overall, just like a really good weekend, a really good time. So I'm excited to get into Candyman because I want to hear all of your thoughts on it because, of course, when it comes to like tweets or social media posts, I know it's impossible to kind of get across everything that we want to say. So be warned, we are doing a spoiler review. Just getting into if we have any like nitpicks or things like that, we will be spoiling some portion of the film, unfortunately. So sorry for anyone who hasn't seen it, but this is your warning right now. This is going to be a spoiler discussion. We'll probably start off really light from the beginning and then kind of dive a little bit deeper into it. But RB3, I'm going to toss it over to you first. I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So my thoughts is that for one, I think it's a good movie. I think it's a good story. Mm-hmm. I think it's very well directed. I think it's well acted. I think it's well shot. I think the music is good. Like, I think all of the actual technical aspects like of filmmaking is like definitely like all there. Like, I think everything, in terms of like how to make a movie good, I love it for all that. I think the suspense, there's some suspense there too. My main thing is, all that's great. Yaya is great. Teyana Paris is great. Everybody's great. My only thing is I just think there wasn't, scary for me. And that was just the one thing that was a little bit missing. And I felt like it was, in my personal opinion, I mean, granted, maybe I'm a little biased, but I think that was a little predictable. You know what I mean? I saw a lot of the kills coming, and I didn't really, nothing really shocked me or took me out of it too much, except for my man Coleman Domingo at the end, but we'll talk about that too. So
yeah, we'll definitely get into the end part. I feel a little bit differently. I kind of feel a little bit warmer about this movie. I agree with a lot of things you said. I think this is directed really, really beautifully by Nia DaCosta. I think a lot of the shots and a lot of the kills and the way she incorporated, of course, like the use of mirrors and reflections and all these different ideas, I found to be so fascinating and interesting. The writing was pretty good. I think the acting was great. Yahya Abdul-Mateen was great. Of course, Coleman Domingo was great. I think every single person, really, even like Vanessa Williams for the one scene that we had, she's really great. I enjoyed a lot about this, and I find something like this to actually be much scarier than what we typically see, like the typical jump scares, because that kind of stuff is predictable to me. I personally wouldn't say this is like as predictable, even though I can see it coming. So from like the definition of what predictable is, it kind of fits that. But because of the camera work and the direction, I just found it to be like unpredictable in that way, which is what kept the suspense. Like, of course, talking about one of the kills straight away, I loved the scene where he's talking to the art critic and then he's leaving. And the second he leaves, we have that moment and it's shot from like outside of the building. My friend used to work in that building. It's like the little, like the two round ones in Chicago. So as like somebody from Chicago, I loved seeing that. But the way she was like lifted up across the freaking window and then smeared, it was just absolutely brutal. And I find that kind of stuff and a lot of body horror to be terrifying. So the body horror that we get in this film, just, it makes me so squeamish, but in the best way possible as a horror fan. I'm not a fan of like typical like jump scares or different things like that. So I love that this was kind of devoid of all the things that I find to be in those like commercially successful like blockbuster horror movies, like the cheaper jump scares. I like stuff that feels earned, and I felt like a lot of this and the build up to each kill or each like scarier scene, I feel like each thing was earned. So this being Nia DaCosta's like biggest feature film so far, obviously she's taking on Marvel. That's coming up very soon. I loved how she went from Little Woods to this one, because this is such a jump. We were able to dive into like the mythos of Candyman a little bit more. I haven't seen the movies in like years, like I would say like 7 years or something like that. I definitely want to go check them out again, but I don't remember them diving in like this much at all. And I feel like there's like a level of sometime in horror understanding like the villain. And sometimes that can be a detriment to a film, and that makes like the villain a little bit less scary. But in this situation, I feel like that level of empathy adds a layer to the villain, that just makes it something a little bit more interesting and complicated, a little bit more complex and compelling. And so I love the fact that she really, really dived into all of that, especially like, I don't know, I think so much of this was a triumph coming to her second feature, taking on this one. Of course, it was #1 at the box office, and we'll talk about all of that. Because seeing the headlines, first Black woman to direct a film that's #1 at the box office, definitely took me by surprise. I'm kind of shocked it took up until this point to happen. I'm so happy that she was able to kind of reach this milestone. I just assumed that this had happened much earlier. So it's kind of crazy now. But I'm going to toss it back over to you. How do you feel about some of like the kills? I know you say like it's a little bit predictable, and so it's kind of underwhelming for you.
Yeah.
But
I think the actual execution of them, like I like the one in the beginning with the art dealer and his side piece. I thought that one was fun, and I also thought I thought the one that where the little kids were in the bathroom and in the girls' restroom and they had them lined up. That felt like a very traditional kind of setup and execution of that. But I just felt like I think it was just I don't know. I think what's weird about this one is that like, how like horror and comedy, like it's kind of like it's like you can look at it as objectively as you want, but like there's that like subjective bridge of like if you're just gonna like be into something or not be into something. This definitely like is on the subject. This is on like the subjective wave, like where I'm just like like I don't. it just didn't hit me like that hard. But I will say though, I did love that it was a subversion of the expectation. I think part of it is that, you know, this generation, like in the era of cinema that we're in right now, we are very much in that like giving the villain the origin story kind of era. I mean, I talk about all the time, like the metatextualism, like with Joker having his own movie, with everybody, you know, there's sympathetic villains left and right. You know, Cruella de Vil, which, you know, is a movie I just watched again this weekend. It's on Disney Plus. You know, we're definitely in this age of like discovering more about the villain and learning that is really society is more to blame here. So I did like that they addressed the issue of gentrification and particularly in the area of Cabrini Green. I'm not too familiar with that area, like in particular, but is that where the original first Candyman is set? Okay.
Yeah, it did take place there because these were like a projects in Chicago, and it was torn down. I believe in like the late 90s, early 2000s. But because I grew up there and my parents grew up there, like they had friends that lived over there or around there, different things like that. And it was kind of on like, it's kind of in the like northwest side of like the north side of Chicago. So yeah, so because basically like their thing was that there was like a lot of like crime going on in that area. So they decided their thing was to like tear it down. So I think a lot of the themes that they were touching on with the gentrification is 100% true. The north side of Chicago being my favorite area of Chicago to go to, because a lot of my favorite like shops and restaurants and things like that are on that side. It is real. Like all around there now, they're constantly changing the city. Every single time I go back, even like going back every single year, my favorite restaurant was like torn down and is now like moved somewhere else and had to move outside of the city. So there is a lot that I think that they were able to like tackle in this. And also even talking about just like artists, like it's like, oh yeah, like they make these, like this rent is a little bit cheaper because it's a sketchier area. So then a lot of these young people are moving. It's like, I live in Silver Lake in Los Angeles, and it's like kind of the same thing where a lot of people talk about like the gentrification of Echo Park and Silver Lake and all these different areas. And I can't live in Silver Lake anymore, even because the rent is going up every single year. And so I'm moving out of Silver Lake. And so people who had grown up and were raised here have to move out of this area. It is absolutely crazy to see the spikes that me living here for the past like 3 years, I've even seen just in the last 3 years. So I really appreciated that they were able to kind of like ground this story with a lot of like real world stuff that I think is genuinely important. How'd you feel about the way that they tackled it?
Yeah, I did enjoy the way that they tackled those issues. I think there are real issues. I mean, it happens in all communities. You know, you talk about in New York, what happens in Brooklyn and, you know, lower Harlem. And you talk about, you know, this is area of Chicago I wasn't personally familiar with, but that's something that affects that as well. And then, you know, look at Los Angeles, you know, Echo Park's one area. Also think about Inglewood is another big area. Like, man, there's Inglewood used to be, had a reputation, you know, was predominantly a black city, but had a reputation for being more hood, more of like a kind of hood community, cheaper, all that kind of stuff. But now it's totally turned around, and it's like, you know, they have the SoFi Stadium over there. They have, they're redoing like the Forum a bunch. So it's like that's gentrification happening like right in front of our eyes, like consistently. So yeah, that's like, it's a real issue. It's a real thing. And it's a real concern that I think is, you know, it's not something that like should be taken lightly. Like, I think that should be at the tip of everybody's tongue, because it, you know, when you look at like the older history of like Los Angeles, like even before the current gentrification that's happening, there was a whole level of gentrification that happened with like the building of Dodger Stadium. Actually, a lot of people don't know, like people can make a whole movie about that. Like there was a whole, how should I say, like there's a whole, you know, because they had a lot of redlining that happened in Los Angeles, like back in the days. Like if you watch that show, Them, like they talk about like how they drew lines of where colored people and white people could like live, and, you know, black people had to live in Compton and all these other places, or and that's how those like communities ultimately end up getting transformed. And like there's an area in like Chavez Rivera that was predominantly like Latino city that was drawn out for them that way, but then it ended up getting completely displaced once the city decided to take on the effort of building a baseball stadium, and they literally evaporated like that entire city and just displaced a whole bunch of people. This is like in 1930s or something like that, 1940s.
For Dodger Stadium?
Yeah,
still?
for Dodger Stadium. Yeah. So this is,
Echo Park and Silver Lake they're both like predominantly Latino.
Yeah.
And now, like not really. A little bit like on like the outskirts of Silver Lake. But and of course, like people like me who like move over here, like coming from Chicago to Los Angeles, it's like part of the problem. Like it drives, like there's a lot of these like hipstery, like bars and restaurants and different things like that open here, and it drives a lot of traffic to this area. But the people who are born and like raised here are like displaced because the rent is so damn high, you can't even keep up with it.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's definitely something that it's good to see that in a major blockbuster film, especially for something that hits number one. And I'm definitely like proud of this movie's like achievements for sure. Again, to me, the only real things like my only real issues, again, I think it's like I initially gave it a 6.5. And then the thing that bumps it down for me too is people kept saying, yo, Rob, you bugging. It's like Lovecraft. Okay. You're talking to the guy who did Lovecraft recaps, like almost after every episode. I know we gave up like after episode 7. I'm sorry. That's, me and Dorian's fault, whatever. Like we did the recaps. Like I took intense notes on like every episode of Lovecraft. Like don't tell me like what Lovecraft had or didn't have, because it had a lot. And it also was very mixed bag. And I think this was consistent in the sense of like it had one thing, it had one message of gentrification. It really drove it in. But it also like did like at points just didn't make sense to me. Like I didn't think Coleman Domingo's character, like I don't think anything he did in this movie like made any sense to me. I don't know. I guess maybe there's some scenes that like got cut out or something maybe, but it felt a little random for him to be like, I mean, again, it's also a little bit of a movie trope too, so it's a little bit of like, you see that like the mentor become, ultimately being like the ultimate like obsessed dude, but I just didn't feel like it was as built up. We obviously see that flashback when he was a kid and he sees like the old Candyman, but I don't know what would like motivate the thought process of bringing him back. I don't know. I guess it was just missing a little piece of that for me personally. Like
I agree. I think one of the weaker points, unfortunately, because his performance is incredible, so this is nothing on Coleman Domingo, but one of the weak points was kind of like this plot line. And of course, the film is 90 minutes, I believe, somewhere around 90 minutes long. Mm-hmm. And that's like really, really short and brief for a film like this that is diving into all these different ideas. I feel like it could have definitely had like 10, 15 minutes added to the runtime, maybe flesh out a little bit of Coleman Domingo's like actions and his motivations a little bit more so it was clearer for the audience. I kind of saw it. Yeah, you talk about like the movie trope. I kind of saw it as like he was the reason why this man had died in the first place, because since he's the one that like screamed and it brought the attention to him when he wasn't doing anything. And then obviously we have the flashback where his sister is killed as well. I think that he kind of has this weird survival, like not weird, but like this like it turns into something weird, but it's like a survivor's guilt plus a guilt in the first place about what he did. But then like his sister wasn't letting him play. He would have been in that same situation if she did. So that's like survivor's guilt there, guilt for the situation that happened in the first place. And then it kind of drove him mad. But yes, there was definitely like a puzzle piece missing somewhere from getting him from this point to the point that we see him towards the end of the film. I was genuinely surprised when Teyonah Parris's character, when she went to the laundromat trying to like seek out like more answers and see where her partner was, and he kidnapped her, and then the whole thing was happening. So I kind of got right away that Yahya Abdul-Mateen was the baby that was kidnapped. I kind of like picked up on that type of thing immediately, but the way that it went, adding the body horror and like the different, like what happened to his skin where it kind of looked like a beehive, I found all of this and his journey as a character and to be like really, really interesting, because you know, there's those things that we like fixate on, especially him being in this situation because he's like an artist that's kind of been like out of touch from his own type of art recently. So he finds this new inspiration, and then it's kind of like a type, he's drawn to it for a reason. And I kind of get those like artist turns mad over their craft, kind of like a Black Swan Whiplash type of situation. And he just becomes like fully immersed and obsessed. But we also have those supernatural elements that are added to it. So I really love that about Yahya Abdul-Mateen's character, Anthony.
Yeah. No, I thought his character was interesting. Like, I think he was cool. By the way, just want to say what's up to the chat real quick. Kylie's movie sounds scary to me. Thank you for watching our stream if not even watching it. John Lee said thought it was a mixed bag to me. I think the script wasn't too strong. Yeah, a little bit agree.
Yeah.
Jesse Swift, I'm just here to say I miss RB3. Oh, thank you. And hey, Sabrina.
Hey.
I guess watching SCN, huh? Yeah. Hour is Candyman, Marvel or DC. Andrew Thomas, hey, RB3, and always beautiful Sabrina. Oh, didn't see Candyman, but I'm here for RB3 choosing violence, says, our wow.
RB3 is a menace.
No, it's not violence. But I do think it's funny because somebody brought up the point. Somebody brought up the point to me of there was Jordan Peele was like the writer of this, right? Even though it's like Nia DaCosta's film. I definitely see a little bit of like the downsides of like the Jordan Peele like writing in this a little bit too. Like I feel like there could have been a little bit like there's always like I feel like brevity is always good. Like you said, a 90-minute film is good. I just do think and I think leaving less to be explained is always good, but I do think there needs to be an extra piece, like in a lot of things. Like you can't just leave like the obvious out there, for people who are paying attention. Like for me personally, like you said, like from the very beginning that they did the opening animation and we're like, oh, this kid is, which I love the animation parts, by the way. Those parts were awesome.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
But when they did the baby was thrown away, and obviously alluding to the story that happened in the first movie, I did kind of pick up like, oh, that's definitely like the main character, like for sure. And then, but I guess maybe that's bad on my part because maybe I just watch a lot of movies and maybe I just like, just tune in to a lot of like these tropes a little bit like more than I guess other people do. So maybe that's just on me. But at the same time, like I can't help but to be a little biased and like in that direction when it comes to my ratings,
I agree with you about the Jordan Peele of it all. I'm a huge fan. Even like the scene that I'm talking about where the art critic is up against the glass and it's out from like the building's view. That reminds me of the scene in Us that we have with like Elizabeth Moss and the family, and we see through their windows, we see all the stuff that is happening in this household. And for some reason, to me, that makes it like scarier watching it from the outside in rather than being in the exact situation. I don't know why. I find it to be so much creepier when it's silent and we're seeing all this stuff, just kind of like leaving it up for our imagination to like think about like what she's going through. But there was 3 writers on it. Nia, Jordan Peele, and then somebody named Wynn Rosenfeld, who's a producer and screenwriter. It seems like this was his first screenplay. Oh, okay. His first time working on a screenplay, like collaboration. So I do think that there was I agree with you 100%. There was just like a puzzle piece like missing here and there. Ultimately, I enjoyed the film. I think it's probably my favorite horror movie so far, but also there haven't really been that much. I haven't been able to see The Night House yet. I think this is one that I could go to a lot because of the body horror elements. And this is one that I could also recommend to a lot of people because it's not super scary. It's like, it builds tension and there's a story there and it's going somewhere, but it's not the scariest thing in the world. There's not jump scares. There's none of that like cheap stuff. So I think this could reach like a wider audience, even people who aren't necessarily fans of horror, for all of those reasons. But yeah, I think add 10, 15 minutes to the runtime. I think some of those little threads that were kind of like left apart, I think they could have came together really well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was, I agree 100%. I think if, they add a little bit more, it could have been great. I do think a lot of what they actually did display on screen, from the visual storytelling, like from the cinematography, like looked really good. A lot of nice stuff, looked really brilliant. Even with the art, like the disturbing artwork that Yaya is creating in this film is like, oh, this is crazy. Production design was good. Everything about it was good. The performances are great. Like I said, even the brother was a really funny character. Yes. I thought he was great. And yeah, I just, all of that stuff was really dope. I just think, you're saying it, like, I think, it was very accessible because it's not very scary. Like, I definitely, maybe I just wanted that. Maybe I just wanted to like feel a little bit of like more of an adrenaline rush. Like, but to me personally, at no point in this movie, for me, I felt scared of anything. Like, and in fact, I saw it in a crowd of people, and like for the most part, it was mostly people laughing like the entire time, and like not in like the laughing in like the horror movie, like run, get out the way, da da da. It was like laughing as in, I bet you the Asian girl's gonna run out the bathroom, right? Right? Oh yeah, she ran out. Oh, okay, yeah. We like the rest of the audience was calling it. Like I was like, okay, all right, like this is so. I don't want to say like. And then it's gonna sound like insulting if I say like dumbed down, but like it felt a little like it felt a little easy. And again, it's good for a message like this because it's an important message, a message like gentrification. You have to bang that into people's head. You have to get that because it's something that affects a lot of communities in a lot of different ways. And also the violence that police have on like a community and like their presence on a community as well. I think that's another really important thing that a lot of people can like take away from this film, and they do it in a way that I think is, to me, like compelling and interesting to see in this light rather than directly, And again, like topics of generational trauma, of all of these things. Like I like that they tied it all the way back to like the 1880s, way back then. That's when this whole pattern first began in Calibre Green, because that is true. Like that, it a lot of times trauma is handed down from generation to generation, especially during the end credits. You see the animations of the stories that like happened in between, like the 1950s, like and all this stuff. So like you could definitely, I think telling those stories is important, and having like that kind of, and having those messages and metaphors is something great. But again, if maybe just one or two things that maybe happened that like wasn't, a little bit, that I just didn't see coming. Like I think I might have enjoyed it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I still think it's a good film. I still recommend it. I still think it's if you're asking me if it's fresh or rotten, I'm definitely giving it a fresh. You know what I mean? 6.5 out of 10. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think the star of this overall is Nia DaCosta when it comes to her direction and everything that she was able to play with this film to make it really interesting and scary. We have Jesse Swift asked, does this make you more excited for Captain Marvel 2/The Marvels? What strengths, weaknesses do you think will carry over? I'm going to toss that over to you first.
I mean, it gets me excited. I mean, it definitely gets me excited for the Captain Marvel or the Marvels, because I do think she got good performances out of both Yaya and Teyonah Parris, and I also think she has a real eye for. I think she has an interesting eye for cinematography and for lighting and for like other cool technical things. I think like a movie like this was definitely like shorter and brevier, and we're going to be talking about like her previous film on our upcoming Meaning Of episode coming up soon, which is a lot smaller and smaller budget, but it's definitely well put together. Like the music, the suspenseful moments, the build up. Like there's I saw somebody online compare this movie to The Invisible Man in the sense of like how creatively a lot of these kills happen. There's a lot of creativity that's going on and being displayed here. So I think I think it does get me excited. I think it also gets me hyped knowing that it's actually gonna, like, they did, like, I like the first Captain Marvel. They got the two directors who did like a couple of smaller pieces that I really liked with Brie Larson. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know why. I can't remember.
I can't remember
either.
off the top of my head.
I'll look it up right now.
But I thought that was exciting because they were like very sentimental directors. But people complained about Captain Marvel. The action wasn't good, whatever. In this, the action was good. So like, I think that just gives me even more hope and excitement for what could be potential to like lie ahead. Like, you know, Nia DaCosta obviously has an eye for good storytelling. Little Woods is Nia DaCosta's first film. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck. They're the ones that did the first Captain Marvel. Mm-hmm. They also directed It's Kind of a Funny Story, which is one of my favorite like little like YA adaptations. I like
that movie too.
Yeah. So they did that one. Yeah, with Emma Roberts. That's a really good one. They also did, I guess, like Half Nelson, Sugar, and Mississippi Grind.
Grind. I love Mississippi Grind.
Yeah. So I mean, they've definitely, they also worked on a few smaller films. I always love seeing some of these smaller like independent filmmakers like Nia DaCosta, who previously, by the time she was like announced for Captain Marvel, of course we knew she was doing Candyman. We hadn't seen it yet. But I'd only seen Little Woods, and I recommended Little Woods forever ago on Geeks of Color on a article that I wrote. So it's always cool to see like independent filmmakers be able to expand upon their craft and take on these bigger budgets. My only thing is I hope they let her like make the movie that, you know, she's going to use her voice, let her voice shine in that film. That's the only hesitation I have towards some of these filmmakers taking on like larger budget, bigger studios. You know, they have to go through so many people, so many executives versus some of these stories where they're able to kind of work on all these things themselves. So yeah, I echo everything that you were saying about like her direction and different things like that. I'm really excited for what she's going to do with Marvel. I think it's really cool to see a really young filmmaker have something like Little Woods, which is incredible. And like you said, we're going to be covering it on our Meaning Of episode of Nia DaCosta coming up pretty soon. But have that and then going to something like Candyman, which is still like a smaller budget, but we knew because horror movies always kill at the box office, especially if they're received really well. Kind of knew this was going to be a success for her. So I'm happy to have that. And yeah, I'm excited for everything that she's doing in the future. She's still so young in her career.
Yeah, no, and it's exciting. I mean, listen, those Marvel executives try and give her any crap. She's got to be like, look, I got the #1 movie in the box office, son. Was good. You know what's making me feel really crazy too? I'm not gonna lie. There's one dude in our office. Shout out to my guy. I'm calling him. I'll just call him Matt. We have like 4 Matts in our office, so he'll know which one is him. But we have every movie he comes in and just craps on it, hates on it. Everything, almost everything. There's a few exceptions every now and then. But I came in twice. I came in 2 times where he liked something and I just like wasn't on the same. We just weren't on the same page. It was with Space Jam 2, and it was with this. Like he was like, "What do you think of Candyman?" I was like, "I thought it was cool." You know what I mean? It wasn't the greatest. He was like, "Oh, dude, I effing loved it." Da, 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 da. And I'm telling you, like he hates everything. Like Zack Snyder's Justice League, F. Army of Dead, F. Okay, I just named 2 Zack Snyder movies.
Yo, honestly, I'm on the same page with him with those 2 for sure. Yo, I could say it now.
Yeah, guys of the versus Kong, F. He'll give everything Fs. He'll just give everything Fs. But he just came in and just like was loving Candyman.
I mean, it's really funny to see like what kind of people are enjoying this film, because some people that like horror, they're not really loving it because it's not super scary. Some people who don't like horror are really like enjoying this film for like its dive into these deep themes. I mean, something else, of course, we already mentioned it, but something else I kind of wanted to talk about, because of course we're going to get into this film with Andres as well and get his perspective on everything, dive into it a little bit more in our Meaning Of episode. But Nia DaCosta became the first Black female filmmaker to open a film at #1 at the domestic box office. That happened with Candyman. I believe it was $20.4 million of an opening. We're still in the thick of the pandemic, even though things start to be like getting a little bit better. This is an amazing number for something that was made on a smaller budget. Not too much money was put into it. So how do you feel about this in the first place, but also where do you think it's going to go in the coming weeks?
Well, I mean, it's a great highlight for Nia DaCosta. Shout out to her for making that achievement happen. You know, like you said earlier in the episode, it's very, very long overdue, you know, definitely. But I mean, it just goes to show like the conditions that, are in this industry and are in Hollywood, and the very unfortunate realities that we're in. And like records were being broken when Black Panther came out, and I'm sure more records, bigger records, are going to be broken when Captain Marvel 2 comes out, that Nia DaCosta is directing, and when Ava DuVernay did the
A Wrinkle in Time.
Yes, A Wrinkle in Time, and it was the first Disney, or it was the first African American woman to ever direct a movie over $100 million. Like, and that was in 2018. Yeah. That was in 2018. Just to think about how recently like a lot of these things are happening. So it's beautiful to see the progress and change in this industry happen, but it's just also crazy and insane to know that that's the reality that we live in. But I personally, looking outside of that, it's an incredible number for the 24 million in and of itself. Because of, like you said, this pandemic, this was released only in theaters, not co-streaming on anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of making people pay for it, which I think is, for the horror fans who were excited about it and for the Candyman fans who were excited about it. They came out in droves. I mean, the screening I saw it at on a Saturday evening, it wasn't like packed out, but it was a good amount of people there. So I think it just goes to show the level of excitement behind this property, which is honestly one of the few like Black horror films from the 90s and from the like late 80s, like, or at least like not Black horror movies, but with like a Black character, kind of at the Black characters like featured heavily, prominently in the original Candyman.
In Black communities, and it had never been helmed by a Black person. Right. Up until this point.
Right. And then again, if you look at, and it's crazy because if you look at like, if you really look at the first Candyman, the first few Candyman movies, like, you could really tell like these were not really representative of like the voice of the people. Like, you could definitely tell like, this was definitely written by some white people, like directed by some white people. And, it definitely has some themes where you're just like, oh, this definitely doesn't age the best. But I think this is why this movie came out at the perfect time. It's like, I don't want to say it's like revisionist history, but it recontextualizes history. I think that's why people are in my DMs talking about Lovecraft, because they're like, oh, Lovecraft, it adds history, but it adds a little magic to it, redefines, all that stuff. And I get that. I like that aspect of it. I don't think they're the exact same in the way that they're like doing that, because I think, I don't know. I think for Lovecraft, they're going for a lot. They're going for like 4 or 5 different things when they're going for like one metaphor. And this movie's like specifically just going for like one thing in particular. But I'm not trying to compare the two. I think they're both like really, I think they're all amazing properties. And shout out to Misha Green. Shout out to Nia DaCosta. Shout out to everybody who's making excellent, horror, fantasy, black science fiction right now, because it just seems to be going off. So I like to see this genre continue more. I want to see more movies like this, more movies like Night House, more movies like Black Box, more movies like, just more Black-centric horror movies that are just really popping off and making waves. And I think now, that this movie is already a proven success, I hate that we're in this industry where we have to prove success to people, but now that this movie is a bona fide success, hopefully it inspires more types of properties and movies like this. So.
And I mean, I feel like that's a perfect way to kind of close out our review of Candyman. And we're going to go into the next segment. So I put the link to the Streamlabs in the chat. If you guys want to be a part of the conversation, have us talk about a certain film, definitely let us know. But of course, this is a remake / reboot. This falls under the category of some older films that are kind of being like remade, rebooted, sequeled, all these different ideas. And we've kind of seen a lot of that over the last few years. Some of the ones that I put down that are already released, and there's more coming. Halloween is a good example of that. Of course, we just talked about Space Jam, Bad Boys. He's All That is another one that I watched this weekend that I totally forgot to talk about in the beginning. Did you watch it?
I did not watch it, no.
I did. So these have come out, and there's so many more upcoming just this year or next year, different things that are already in the works. We have Ghostbusters, Top Gun, Robert Eggers is taking on Nosferatu. How do you feel about Hollywood's kind of like need to remake and reboot something? Do you think they're banking off of nostalgia, or do you think that, like in the situation of Candyman, like that they're actually taking something and adding more layers to it, making it a little bit more interesting by actually representing kind of like the specific stories that they've been trying to tell at the beginning, but haven't necessarily like hit the nail? How do you feel about certain remakes and reboots?
Well, I mean, I think, reboots, remakes are just like, they're standard practice in Hollywood. If you go to, when Andres and I did our episode on A Star Is Born, like all 4 versions, to me, that's just an epitome of like how a movie can tell the same story, but from 4 different eras and still have the same basic narrative structure, but how the context around the real world makes the story is ultimately so much more different, And I think to me, like, that's what reboots and remakes do. Like, that's what, one of my favorite, reboots, technically reboots of all time, Mad Max Fury Road. I think to me, that's definitely an example of, they completely, took away almost everything that was Mad Max, including the main star, including Mel Gibson, but still kept his character there, but also made it relevant to today, made it relevant to environmental issues, made it relevant to women issues and dictatorship issues, like all these different things that they like fully incorporated into Mad Max Fury Road and fully invested in. Same thing with maybe to a lesser extent, I'm not the biggest fan of like the Jurassic World franchise, but I'm sure if you ask like the Colin Trevorrow, or if you ask somebody involved, they will say that their reimagining of the Jurassic World universes, what is that? What does the more active consumerist capitalist version of Jurassic Park look like? I think that's kind of the approach or the message they're kind of going with, which is something in and of itself. I personally, a lot of people say don't touch the original, don't touch the original, don't touch the original. For certain movies, yes, it's definitely like that, because there's some movies that are timeless in and of themselves, that they kind of don't like need to exist in any other kind of period to live on their own. But I will say like, for a lot of these things, a lot of things don't age well. A lot of things are ripe for reboots. Scarface ages terribly. I think that is almost a perfect example of what is a more recent example that people love that can be done and can be flipped. Of course, the one thing that kind of makes me hesitant though is like, now there's this whole campaign or this whole thing online about this SJW, like anything that comes out and makes mild changes to a property is, it's SJW, it's ruining my childhood.
How dare a movie that came out like 4 decades ago, how dare the new one decide to kind of like expand upon more relevant issues to today's society? Like, and a lot of those people are kind of ignoring it, because especially when we look at films from like the 80s or 90s or whatever that we're talking about. And another example, like we have the upcoming Ghostbusters, but then we did have the other Ghostbusters that came out, like 2-3 years ago now. Yeah. And people were mad about that. It wasn't a great movie. I didn't love it. I didn't enjoy it. I also didn't grow up with Ghostbusters, so I didn't care too much. But people were mad just because like they added women. And yes, I do not think the best way to go about something is always just like necessarily taking the same story and like just like adding like, it's the same type of story, but now there's women, so this is something new. It's like, what do they bring to the table that's like new and refreshing, and a reason why we need it? I love that you mentioned A Star Is Born, because each one is essentially the same story, but the matter of the ways that the story goes is always a little bit different. And there's something like watching this recent one, it feels different than the others in all the best ways, in saying something like even like the music and the fashion and everything. So I love those examples, but like Halloween, like we're able to see like our favorite like Scream Queen coming back, Jamie Lee Curtis, and she's just like so badass. But yeah, those people online that are like, oh, they added this SJW stuff. And it's like, sometimes it was there already. You just didn't notice it because they don't bring that stuff necessarily to the forefront. And nowadays people aren't hesitant to do that. And if they want to have a message come across in the film, they're going to do it blatantly, and they don't care about kind of like dividing the audience.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, people are always like, where's the brave, like people, you know, film critics look at what happened in like the 1950s, 1960s, and like ultimately the 1970s when like independent filmmakers started coming up and all this stuff, you know. And a lot of people ask now in today's generation, like, where's that bravery happening? Like, where do we see that? Like, how is that, how is, you know, why are all the filmmakers making Star Wars and comic book movies and stuff like that? But I think what people are failing to realize is that the filmmakers are putting the important, brave, groundbreaking stuff inside of our favorite properties. You know, like Black Panther is, if you just look at the story, like I say it all the time, but if you look at the story of Black Panther just written on paper, it's literally a story about a kingdom going up into like a civil war. Like that's pretty deep. Like that's a deep concept for a Marvel movie, you know? Same with The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi is all about a symbol, you know, being reincarnated, like, and being reimagined and different. Oh, we have a Streamlab. Hey.
John Speaks donated $5. I can't wait for Halloween Kills, and I heard that Ghostbusters Afterlife is great from people that saw it at Cinemacon. Also, Shang-Chi this weekend. If you feel comfortable, please go see the movie this weekend.
Yes. Thank you so much. Shang-Chi, 100%. Do you have your tickets for Shang-Chi? Oh, you're muted.
So I do not have my tickets for Shang-Chi, but
I know I need to get those really, really soon. I'm really looking forward to that one. That's another great example of an independent filmmaker, Destin Daniel Cretton, doing something like Short Term 12 and then going on into a Marvel movie. And it's always cool to see some of these like voices like add their sensibilities and their own unique style to some of this stuff. So I'm very, very excited for that. Short Term 12 is one of my favorite movies of all time. Right.
And same with me. I mean, and that's why I love, like, I just love seeing bravery happening and like them taking these chances with young independent directors like Dustin, you know, probably going to make something a lot deeper out of Shang-Chi than just probably any other standard, you know, normal blockbuster director probably.
Michael Bay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what the new guard, and that's what the new guard is all about. That's what the new guard is trying to do. And I think with remakes, you know, I think that's why something like a Candyman, listen, I didn't think it was like, you know, the greatest thing ever, but the audience is loving it, it's making a lot of money, and it has an 85% Rotten Tomatoes. So it's obviously connecting with a lot of people, and it's connecting with people because people want to see that. Like, no matter how SJW you want to call it, it's successful for a reason. Same thing with the new Masters of the Universe on Netflix. And granted, that's another thing I haven't seen. I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
I haven't seen it either.
Maybe people could like tell me if it's really trash or not. But it seems like for people, from what I'm reading on Twitter, people are mainly just trashing it because it's you know, is not making choices that they want to see. You know, it's not about He-Man. It's about, you know, some other characters. So you know, reboots, you know, all that stuff. If y'all want to give me a fresh new direction in any kind of direction, like that's not the atypical Hollywood standard, you know, white dude, you know, whatever, give me that. Give it to me. Like, I want that. Like, I encourage that because that gives people something different to look forward to. And that's not the reality that we're going to, you know, be living in. So, and I'm sorry for all the white dudes in the chat that I offended.
Just a disclaimer right away. I mean, going into that, like, I know probably a lot of you haven't seen He's All That. It's essentially the same story. I'm not like spoiling anything, you know, already like the baseline of it. I haven't seen She's All That in a hot minute. My dad really liked it when I was a kid. It was in like the rotation with like Footloose, 10 Things I Hate About You, and She's All That. That's something that we would watch all the time. But this one, it's like, it's one of those things that it doesn't necessarily like have to be remade. I do like a lot of the choices that they're going to make. Overall, as a film, I don't think it's anything spectacular or whatever. It's like one of those little teeny bopper like Netflix shows that they do, like To All the Boys I Loved Before, Kissing Booth, all of that, which To All the Boys I Loved Before is actually a lot better than the rest of them. So I don't want to put all of them in the same category. But this one was like fun, and it was like fun to like make fun of just like a little bit. And they added some really cool ideas like into the story that honestly, like I'm really excited that they were able to do that. There was like positive LGBTQ representation, all these different things, which is something that we're seeing so much like in film this year when it comes to Fear Street, even Candyman, and this one. And it's so great because it's one of those things where it's not like, oh, we have representation, like look at us, like pat ourselves on the back type of thing. It's just organic and natural, and it flows and it feels authentic to like the teenage experience, or in Candyman, just like an adult experience, or Fear Street, it's the same thing, to the teenage experience. There's so many different people that still need to have like their own little stories shown in film. And so it gets me really, really excited about that. But yeah, overall, He's All That is a good movie if you want to make fun of it and have a good time and have like a few really good moments. Not that Kourtney Kardashian is in it. That's exactly what I'll say to finish that. Kourtney Kardashian is in it. I don't think this woman has ever acted a day in her life.
Well, hey, you said it, not me. So, I mean, honestly, you know, it's not my type of vibe, but you know, you're selling me on it. You're selling me a little bit. So, I don't know. I'm gonna have to. I'm not even gonna lie. It was like an hour and 30 minutes. It was really fun to just like watch and make fun of. I was obviously watching it with like Brandon. I was gonna go to sleep early one night and I saw that it had come out and I was like, let's just toss this on, because I have seen so many movies over the last few weeks, and it was between this one or Annette. I don't know have you seen Annette yet? I don't think I've seen that one either. No.
That's like the Adam Driver new one. I believe it came out on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I haven't seen it though.
Yeah, I've been kind of sick over the last like 2 weeks, so I keep starting it, getting like 15 minutes in, and then not vibing. So I need to sit down and give the entire thing a shot. But it is something for sure. It is definitely something.
Dang, I gotta check that one out. I tried to start the Forever, or was that the Tomorrow War? Is that the one with Chris Pratt? I tried starting it. What was another one? The Hugh Jack movie I tried. I know you saw it, Sabrina. I really tried.
Reminiscence.
I tried 3 times. I promise.
3 times?
Yeah, I thought it was a cool concept. I just didn't. I don't know what, you know what I mean.
You know what? I don't think I've talked about it on this channel yet. So I'm going to do a non-spoiler little thing to get you to finish this movie.
Okay.
Because I don't necessarily think you're going to come out of the movie thinking it's a masterpiece or anything, but I think somebody like you, from what I know about your tastes, I think this is kind of a good movie. Okay. It has like a little bit of a clunky start. Once it gets into it, it's a little bit of like this like dystopian neo-noir type of situation. Okay. And that's where I think the movie shines. The movie shines when it's at this tone. It's just some of it is like tonally inconsistent. Oh my God. The one thing I will say, and of course we already know there's going to be some action in it. The action takes me out immediately. It feels so misplaced. It feels like we have Hugh Jackman. He's an action star. We got to have these few action moments. But when it leans into the neo-noir of it all, that's when it really shines, and that's where it gets me. So it has some interesting little twists and turns. I would say there's definitely a lot worse films. I would put this somewhere in like towards the top middle of what I've seen this year. I really liked a lot of it. There was just where it had some script problems and was like tonally inconsistent in a few places. But this is another creator. It was directed by a woman, and she had like worked on like Westworld and different things like that. And I think this introduces a lot of really interesting ideas. It's kind of talking about like climate change, global crisis, because the situation that we're at the start of the film, which you might have seen, is a place where like the sea level has risen, the temperature is hot. People don't even go out in the day because it's so hot. So the day is actually the nighttime. That's when people like work and do all of their stuff. There's really interesting stuff in there. It just is a little bit clunky and messy in a few areas, and that's what kind of loses me. But like I saw it in theaters, and the cinematography is great.
I gotta check that.
I would say, I know it's a little long, so I get like 2 hours and 30 minutes to spend on the movie. it's a little much, but if you have a spare 2.5 hours, I'd say try to finish it.
I will definitely. I definitely will try. I gotta say, it did look really nice on TV. So it did look good. I just gotta get. I think I get about 35 minutes in, and it just loses me. But you're not vibing. I'm a dedicate. I do gotta say though.
That's what I'm trying. I have the same situation with Annette.
With Annette, you just gotta like lock in. I have
to lock in.
There's certain movies like there's definitely certain movies that I had to do that for though. Like No Man's Land, I had to lock in for, really lock in for, like to take in. Like I had to get an hour deep into.
But you liked it.
But I loved it. Yeah. By the time I like fully got through the experience, like it was just tough. But there's shows that are like that. By the way, there's this show. There's this show on HBO Max called Sweet Life LA, Sweet Life Los Angeles. And it is like the messiest reality show I've ever seen.
It's reality.
Like, it is so good. Like, okay. I have a little bit of a soft spot in my heart for like reality TV. Like I grew up on like Love and Hip Hop and like all that stuff. So like, but then I kind of take a break from it because like reality is fake, and I worked on reality shows. I know how fake it is. But then this show comes out, and it's with this dude. It's the homie Jordan Bentley, who's the creator of Hypeland. He's like a super popular clothing company, but they do a lot of anime designs and stuff like that. But he's like a young 25-year-old black dude. And then he's part of the cast. There's this other dude named Gerard, who I'm pretty sure I worked with on like a production gig like way back when. But I met Jordan because we at Network Iffy.
You should have been on the show.
That's literally, I'm watching this show and I'm like, oh, this is. I know two people on this show. I could fit right in. Like, and there's one dude on there. Like, I thought, okay, maybe I'm too broke. Like, I can't afford to be on this show. These are obviously high rollers. But they got one dude on this show. He's driving like a beat up 1999 Honda. Like, ain't got no roof, ain't got no thing. I'm like, oh, bro, like, I could have definitely been in this. Like, and by the way, like it's so beautiful. It's produced by Issa Rae. And so like they put like real money behind like the production value of it. They're going to like these beautiful Palm Springs beach vacations in Mexico and all this. But man, they got the most like they found a perfect balance of like messy 25-year-oldness to like throw in with like all these successful like people, because it's supposed to be like successful black people like, oh, we're thriving, we're buying houses, we're like doing this, and then they just find a little twinge of messy like to get you extra like this. So I'm loving that. There's 6 episodes. They do 3 episodes like every week or whatever. And there's 30 minutes, and they just give you just enough.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
Definitely check it out, and remember Jordan, because Jordan's definitely a homie who I worked with at Network, and then seeing him in this show is just hilarious because he's really trying to be like some Drake Loverboy type stuff. Like, it is so funny.
We got a question in the chat. What do you think of Kanye's new album?
Oh, Sabrina, you don't want to stick around for this segment, I know. I mean, we're gonna we don't have to talk about Kanye. I think it's a good album. I mean, it's like I talked about it in previous weeks, listening to bootleg. So I still like the bootleg honestly more than like the actual finished version, if I'm being real. Because to me the bootleg came out in a time where it was just easier to like Kanye, you know what I mean? You didn't have to bring on Marilyn Manson and the Baby and all this stuff on stage. Like, oh, bruh, I can't even retweet the album now. You're making me feel weird. You're making me feel weird.
Why
Kanye.
did he even do, like, literally what was he and like Marilyn Manson's just like bopping to it like in the corner all awkward.
Yeah.
Like, why? Yeah. What was the point?
That was it.
I haven't heard one song. I probably won't listen. I heard him and Kim got like remarried or something.
Oh yeah, on stage. That was beautiful. See, this is my thing. I come in late to everything. So I came in 15 minutes late. So I saw I thought there's a white dude on stage with Kanye. I had no idea that was Marilyn Manson. I just thought it was a random white dude. And then apparently the baby was up there, but he was wearing a mask, like a full head mask. So I had no idea. I'm all tweeting about it, like, oh, this is an amazing performance. Cause it was amazing. Like he had like he built his whole childhood house, and then and he put it on fire, and he's like walking out of the fire. I don't know if it was himself, if it was a stunt double, but he's like walking out on fire, and he's like burning down his house, and then the lights go down, and then the lights go back up, and then he's on a marriage thing with him and Kim. I'm like, oh, this is like actual tears. And it's like the last song, it's like, oh, beautiful. And I'm like, oh, this is tears. This is beautiful. And then all my Twitter mentions are, oh, the baby. Oh, Marilyn Manson. I'm like, no. And then
I did not recognize Marilyn Manson.
Well, I just didn't. I don't know. I don't know. Well, for one, I also thought like, why would Marilyn Manson be at a gospel concert? You know what I mean? Like, his dude's talking about Jesus for half this album. And then it also makes me like, yo, how authentic is this? So I don't know. There's some of it that's cool, there's some of it that's not cool. But I will say I was feeling weird like on Sunday when it dropped. But definitely when I got to work on Monday, the boys were going crazy playing that album. Like we were going I've been hearing it non-stop. Everybody's like from their individual laptops at work, just like on full blast, like different songs like from it. So at least like it's hitting people. It hit me. The bootleg hit me. That's also my part too. Like I've been listening to the bootleg for a month. So by the time the actual album came out, it was a little underwhelming. So.
Yeah. That's a journey and a half.
Yeah, that's a journey. I didn't mean to spend this long on Kanye, but
I love it. That's what we're here for today. We don't have Andres here to keep it all structured and good, so we just have like us talking about whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, somebody mentioned in the chat that Netflix is rebooting, sequel, remake, going to Netflix for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, I grew up on horror, like grew up on slasher horror first. That was like the first one that was just scary enough where it was fun when I was a kid, but it wasn't too scary. I didn't get into like the supernatural stuff yet. So I loved the Friday the 13th. I love the Texas Chainsaw Massacres, of course, Nightmare on Elm Street, all these different ones. I feel like it's an interesting move. There's a lot of horror remakes or sequels or reboots or whatever that just don't do very well. Nightmare on Elm Street didn't do well. Friday the 13th didn't do well. And they have a good cast behind them. I remember even Rooney Mara's in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Like they have some like star talent. I guess it just comes down to seeing more of the same and if it feels like a rehashing, which is something I don't want for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, reboot, whatever that's going to be happening on Netflix. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, same thing. I don't know what the Netflix model is. I mean, part of me, I don't know, man. Part of me gets a little worried. Sometimes Netflix is like A-list, hit it out the park, killing it, hitting it. But lately, sometimes lately, they've been feeling like the CW of the streaming networks a little bit.
Yeah.
But hopefully this is one that they do knock out the park. Netflix, they pay big money for a lot of these properties, for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for things like Knives Out 2, even for the Avatar Last Airbender. So probably things like that, I think they probably take a little bit more seriously. So I think it would be like a high priority for them to get it right, especially if, like you said, they're planning it to release it theatrically. But it all comes down to the creative team. It depends on who they get. Hopefully it's, people who are, some of the original team who are passionate about the franchise. What's very fortunate about Halloween is that John Carpenter is still alive, and that he could literally be directly, like I'm sure if David Gordon Green or, whoever had a question about like Halloween or a direction they want to take, they could just easily call up John Carpenter and be like, oh, like, what do you think of this? How do you think of that? Like they could probably feed off ideas. But I think with Texas Chainsaw, it's a little bit more difficult in that response.
Exactly.
So
yeah, and like the Scream one is coming out as well, which I love. I love the Scream franchise. That is definitely another one. Still, the first film is like one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I have more high hopes for that one because the fourth one was really good. Like it was actually really. Did you see
I actually see the
fourth one?
fourth one? I haven't seen it. No.
I'm not gonna lie, I actually loved a lot of the directions that they took with this one and who ended up like being the killer. I liked the Scream TV show enough. Like it wasn't the greatest thing of all time. I know that one like dropped on Netflix after it was on television because I think it was on MTV originally. I really like when Netflix does like some original stories with really good creators. So yeah, I agree with you where it comes down to the creators because the stuff that they did with Haunting of Hill House and Haunting of Bly Manor with Mike Flanagan, that I enjoy stuff like that. I really don't watch a lot of Netflix series or like television on there because yeah, I just feel like more of it's like misses than hits. It just doesn't really pull me in because I'm not the biggest TV person anyway. So there's a lot of questions in the chat. They're saying poor Sabrina when you're talking about Kanye.
Oh, my bad. Yeah.
No, it's all good. Yes, I am excited for the new Scream movie and thoughts on Disney rebooting The Rocketeer with David Oyelowo.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
David Oyelowo, that just dropped earlier today.
Oh, wow. Co-producing. That's interesting that they got the star before the director. I wonder who would be interested in directing this. I wonder Joe Johnston's still alive. He'd probably have some hand in it. But I would love to see a new young filmmaker. A movie I just watched recently, and I know the director of this movie, his name has been floated around for Star Wars properties. But I saw this movie Slight from director J.D. Dillard.
It's on my watch list.
Yeah, it was good. Yes. It was actually pretty good. I was like, oh, this is like dope. And then I remember his name was floated for a few Star Wars properties back in the day, but I don't know if he has anything else big coming out. But I would love to see him do a property like they were saying in the chat, like Rocketeer, because it was like imaginative, but also like gritty and like very like realistic in a very certain way too. So I like that. I like that movie a lot.
Yeah, I like this. I just watched The Rocketeer for the first time not too long ago. So I think this is like another thing where that's really cool. And David Oyelowo, I feel like, is so damn talented. I saw a test screening forever ago, like when I was like a sophomore in college or something like that, for a movie that he did with Storm Reed. That wasn't like the greatest movie of all time, but he like plays her uncle. And it plays with like time travel and different things like that. Oh, the timestamp remake? Yeah, I know that movie. Yeah, trust me, I know that movie. Look, it literally comes up, Don't Let Go. That's the first thing. I typed in Slight, and then that's the second thing that comes up, Don't Let Go. Oh, that's really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I saw it was called something else. I think it was called like The Call when I went to the test screening.
Oh, maybe it was
something else.
Yeah.
No. They did change. I realized that they changed the title when it actually came out because I was keeping up with it. I was like, oh, when's it going to drop? And it just is one of those things that kind of like dropped and fizzled away. But for some of these horror franchises and like remakes and stuff like that, the Drew Goddard, I feel like is another cool name of somebody who's really good and I feel like could helm a lot of this stuff, whether it's something like Halloween or Scream or whatever, because I was really impressed by Cabin in the Woods and the way it was able to be that same like comedy horror meta level. And I also like Bad Times at the El Royale. Oh yeah. So
great film.
Yeah. I think he's another really cool filmmaker that I want to see a little bit more of. But I guess with that ends our discussion.
Yeah. I was gonna say one more remake I wanted to show some love for real quick, or not remake or I guess technically a reboot, maybe not even a reboot, but gotta show love to the finale heading up for Monsters at Work. My Disney Plus original favorite. Nobody's been talking about this show. Disney's not even talking about this show. Still not how many days without an Instagram post on Pixar's. I'm gonna go to Pixar's Instagram right now, actually.
Damn, they need to hire me as their social media marketing manager.
Like nothing. Like they've been pushing Luca down our throats. Like, bruh, get over it. And then I mean, they got a lot of stuff about. Up. You know, just obviously. RIP.
Oh yeah.
RIP
Ed Asner.
Yeah. Yo, look at this, Sabrina. This is embarrassing. They have nothing on here about Monsters at Work at all. So Toy Story 4. I didn't even know
it came out.
I'm seeing Toy Story 4. I'm seeing trailers for their other movies. Like I'm seeing Incredibles. I'm seeing Inside Out. I'm not even trying. Like there's nothing on here about Monsters at Work. Nowhere. They don't care.
I think you're single-handedly carrying the marketing for Monsters at Work. Your tweets, because you've tweeted about it quite a few times. And the only reason I know about it coming out, I remember a long time ago when it was like in production or whatever. The only reason I knew that it came out is because of you.
Really?
Like they're not promoting this whatsoever, not at all.
And this is, and you know what's crazy too, because at work at my job we had a drop that was like some Monsters Inc. toys, and I had one of our interns, Gil, shout out to Gil. I was like, Gil, give me get some. Because our streams were like live streaming, so I said, "Gil, give me some B-roll of Monsters at Work trailer." And he's like, "What?" And Monsters at Work, the new Disney Plus show. And he's like, "I've never heard of this show." And then like I sent him the trailer. He's like, "Oh, this seems pretty cool. I might check it out when I get home." I'm like, bro, I can't literally be sending it to every intern ever, telling people to watch this show if they're not even trying. Like, come on,
How
Disney.
many episodes have there been so far?
Right now it's 9. It's about to be 10 on Wednesday. Yeah.
Okay. And is it like 20, 30 minutes or something?
They're like 30 minutes each. Like, or like 20. Yeah, like 23. Yeah, they're sweet. They're sweet episodes too. I get it. They're not like the most like well written. Like, it's not like tearjerker every episode, like, or it's not even like the funniest or per se. But to me, like,
you're not selling it right now.
Well, no, I mean, it's to me, it's nostalgia. It's a little bit of nostalgia. Like, to me, I tweeted about it a little bit, but I used to love shows like Tarzan, like, or like Lilo and Stitch, like the animated show on Disney Channel, or or The Emperor's New School, or just any of those like weird like spin-off shows that had almost nothing to do with the original movie, but just still like had like your favorite characters. I just love that. I just eat that up. And then, but this is like a big budget version of that with like good animation and with like Mindy Kaling and like all these voice actors and the original Mike Wazowski and all them too. So it's like, oh, this is just like this is made for heaven for me. And I don't know. I think it's good for kids. Like, I think it's really good if you have like a little kid who you want to introduce to the Monsters Inc. franchise a little bit. Like, totally give it a try.
And stuff like that. That's a really cool thing that, like, with this conversation of remakes and reboots, like a series where maybe necessarily like they don't have to watch like the originals yet. I think a really good and successful reboot, remake, sequel, whatever it may be, even something like Bill and Ted, you could have watched the latest Bill and Ted and know nothing about it, and you could still watch it and enjoy it. You just are being introduced to the characters for the first time. But that's what I feel. And then you have your audience go back and watch like some of the older films. So you're like reintroducing this franchise or this film or whatever it is to a new audience. So with this show, I don't know why something like this isn't more heavily promoted, because a lot of kids could watch this for the first time and then go back and watch the original Monsters Inc. film, watch like the Monsters University or whatever. How'd you feel about Monsters University, by the way?
I actually like Monsters University. I'm not gonna lie. See, I'm naturally Pixar. Like, I'm just anything, like by default, I'm almost like naturally gonna like anything Pixar. And then Monsters Inc. was like one of those pivotal ones for me when I was a kid. And I'm not gonna lie, it, even though 2013, like I was like a sophomore in high school, I guess I was thinking a little bit about college a little too early. So maybe that's why I like connected to it. But I definitely was like, oh, it's college. Like, he's going off to college. And when I watched it, like my freshman year of CSUN, like I definitely rewatched, like when I went off to live on my own, I definitely watched that movie. It was like a little bit of self-therapy. I don't know why. Just cartoons,
it's comfort.
Pixar.
It's comfort.
But yeah, I like Monsters University, but it's not like, again, I know these movies aren't like, I know it's not like the greatest. And I know like, it probably isn't even, to me, it's probably the second to worst like Pixar sequel behind like besides like Cars 2
and 3.
And 3. I didn't know. I don't think I've never seen 3. I've never seen 3 actually. But yeah, I'm actually sorry. It's the third worst. I don't like Monsters. I'm sorry. I don't like Incredibles 2. I don't like Incredibles 2. Y'all know that. Okay. But yeah, I like Monsters University, and I have nostalgia for it. And they play a little bit into Monsters University, like at the very beginning of the show, but it's mainly for like Monsters Inc. fan. Like, it takes place literally like 10 or like the next day after Monsters Inc. is like over or something like that. So if you're to actually like do like a Monsters Inc. right into Monsters at Work, like it would make the most sense, you know? So like,
yeah, you heard it here, folks, because
check it out.
Pixar is not promoting this at all for some reason.
Disney.
Check out this show. Yeah, Disney, Pixar, they're not promoting this, but check out what's it called? Monsters at Work.
Monsters at Work. Finale is this Wednesday. Oh, and one more thing that's happening this Wednesday. I probably should have said this at the beginning of the show and people are paying attention. Ace, my man, Ace will be on network yet again. He will be on Meltdown. Let me get the air horns going. Let me get the snipers going real quick. This is gonna be huge. You know, Meltdown. That's happening Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. I'm gonna make sure I send him the link, and like we're gonna get it all tweeted out, and we're gonna get this out because we definitely need the fan support. I know. There's some of y'all in the chat who be in there who actually made network accounts and show up. Like I know Aiden showed up one time, Raul showed up a few times.
Nice.
People are showing up. Please show up. It really helps them out. It really helps us out at network, but also helps out Ace because it shows that, you know, that the matrix that we use at network to help, you know, for our success is, you know, our chat. How are the people engaging? How are people feeling? And I want y'all, the First Cut crew, to go in there and tell the people in the chat, tell the higher ups, yo, we love Ace. We like Ace. We want to see Ace on here every day. Come on, hire him. So then that's what we're trying to accomplish. So let's make sure Meltdown this Wednesday.
I'll be tweeting all of that out.
Yeah,
5 p.m. I'll be tweeting out all that information. With that, I feel like this kind of concludes our unhinged Andres is not here discussion on Candyman and the discussion on reboots and remakes and sequels. Again, I am Sabrina Ramirez. You could follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Sabrina X Monica, also on Twitter at Sabrina on Film. First Cut at First Cut TMO on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you guys go check that out so that when Andres is on network or when we have a new Meaning Of episode, all of that, you guys stay up to date with the content that we create. RB3, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram and on all the dating platforms at Director RB3. And also stay up to date because there will be some big announcements coming up with both Timestamp and probably with Cardboard Castles too. Also, shout out to Johnny. He got himself a job as well. Our friend Johnny Roan got an amazing opportunity. They're doing amazing things. So proud of them. So yeah, big shout out.
Go Johnny.
Woo. All right.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I don't know how to close this stuff out. Andres isn't here. With that, we are the First Cut crew and we are peacing out.
This ain't funny, so don't you dare laugh. With the 4/5 divide you in half. You getting at me equals a club half. You do the math, take you out the equation. This ain't funny, so don't you dare laugh. With the 4/5 divide you in half. You getting at me equals a club half.
It's Britney, bitch.